Okay, that's better. Sorry, guys. Are we good? I think we're good. Are we good? I think we're good. All right, cool. What do you guys want to talk about? All right, cool. What do you guys want to talk about? All right, cool. What do you guys want to talk about? Okay, Lisa, what? Lisa Bartone says, I was wondering why does everyone in Boulder seem so hush about this murder and the Ramseys? Um, I don't know. Uh, the one of my first impressions about it, besides obviously being that a young child was murdered, is that the this family in particular was pretty wealthy, and it leads me to believe that you know anytime the kind of money is involved that you have in this family, that people are probably more reluctant to come forward and say things. You know, I mean, obviously we've seen what's happened in the past. You know, just recent history with Burke suing CBS and things like that. I think keep people kind of scared and keep them being quiet. Um, Carrie. So I'm not actually from Boulder. Carrie asks, "Am I from Boulder? How'd you get involved in the project?" Um, I'm from Lakewood, which is a suburb that's kind of not too far away from Boulder, probably about a 15-20 minute drive. Um, the way I got involved in the project actually is that I like to make music. I score films. I just recently got into it. I've been doing short films, local independent things, and I was doing a project for that, and we had a barbecue for this one particular film I scored where everyone involved in the project got together, and I met a casting director, and we were drinking beers. We hit it off pretty good, and he asked me if I'd ever tried acting. And I said no. Uh, said, well, I'm going to send you an email in a couple weeks to let you know about this casting call and see if you might be interested in it. Don't expect to get a part or anything, but it'll be a cool experience at the least. And I went down and I tried out, and much to my surprise, I got an email a few weeks later saying they were interested in having me. So it was pretty badass. I was excited. Um, it was really strange to get a part in such a kind of a big film for your first experience, and a little bit intimidating, honestly. Very, very professional how they ran it. Do I think they're any closer to solving this? Um, I don't. I don't. You know, for all the advances in technology, um, I feel like when a case goes this cold, with I mean, they've already, had DNA uh, technology available to them for, I don't know, 20 years. And the fact that that wasn't good enough to get the job done leads me to believe that this thing is too far gone. You know, Patsy has obviously passed away, and if there's anything that she knew, that's gone. So I I don't think it's going to be solved, honestly. Yeah, Kitty was pretty upfront about what the project was. Um, she described it pretty accurately. Even when you describe the nature of that project to someone, it's still kind of confusing uh, for them to understand it. It seems like it was, but yeah, she was pretty straightforward about it. Um, Her and the other people who she had on set would just kind of engage in conversation with you in between your takes, that you were doing, and stuff like that. I worked on the film 4 days, I think, in all, and she used footage from 2 of the days. One of them was my second casting call tape, and the other was the press conference scene, obviously, which was really a super cool experience. Um, because me and William, who you did the Q&A with last time, um, the, we were in this building, and they had about 75 to 100 extras, it seems like, and me and William were the only two who had speaking lines, and it was just crazy to see a production of that quality and professionalism up close. Even just to be there was super exciting. So Joan Hubble asks, "Do you have a personal theory on who done it?" Okay, I thought this one might be coming. So, um, I feel like I actually had a stronger opinion before before being involved in this project than I do after. Um, I will say this. There were some things that I said in my casting call that I became worried might be used in the film, and I actually emailed Kitty about it, and let's just say I emailed her about 2, 3 months ago, and she assured me that that particular scene had been deleted. So you can kind of draw from your own conclusions what I might have said um, based on that. But the one theory that I did hear in the film that really hit home with me was the guy who said that he had struggled with masculinity throughout his life, and during the course of filming, he had actually been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he felt that somehow his struggles with masculinity um, had something to do with the development of the cancer. And then he went on to suggest that Patsy's ovarian cancer uh, may have had something to do with the fact that she felt some kind of guilt, is basically what he inferred. And I I think that's a very interesting theory. I don't think that that necessarily still implicates her directly, but I did find that take fascinating. Carrie asks, did you research the case prior to auditioning? I did a little bit. I I'm definitely not an expert on the case, but I knew I was going for the role of police chief, so I did some kind of Wikipedia research on his involvement in the case in particular, who he was, um, what he was like. I tried to watch some YouTube videos on him and kind of just to get some sort of a foundation for where he's coming from. I wasn't gonna try to be like him necessarily, but I wanted to at least have some sort of a grasp on um, who he was and his involvement. Um, no, I haven't. Not that I've heard. I certainly wouldn't be surprised to hear that they have something to say about it at some point, Lisa. Um, I've been kind of keeping my eye on that too. Um, so when the film first came out, I was so hyped about it. You know, I it went to Sundance and it did really well at Sundance, and it did really well critically. It got bought by Netflix, and I started to realize, holy shit, this thing is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I mean, when I went in for my first casting call, I didn't know if this thing was going to be made. Uh, I was used to dealing with little independent local films that half the time or more they don't even end up getting made. Um, so the thing gets bought by Netflix. It does really well critically, and then it comes out and it kind of got tore up by the public, you know, which I think I kind of expected. Things are a little bit the opposite of the way they used to be, where critics were really harsh on films and the public was kind of more forgiving. It's kind of backwards from that now. Um, but it was emotional, for people like me, and I'm sure, Kitty and William and all the, several hundred other people who were really emotionally invested in this film. Um, it was kind of stressful. So, I think I kind of tried to take some time off from like the casting Jonbenet thing, like probably a couple weeks after it came out. I mean, it's only been out like maybe not 3 weeks or a month now, but I just tried to get back into doing some of my other creative things and let it sort of breathe for a minute and let everyone come back to earth. Uh, I think in in time, it's going to eventually be looked back on really well. You know, It's just like a lot of documentaries when they first come out, like King of Kong and stuff, kind of takes people a while to figure out what it is, and how they feel about it. Yeah, I did see that it did pretty well in New York City. I think it was in some theaters out there, actually, wasn't it, Lisa? I know that it was going to have limited theatrical release. Um, Carrie says, "Did you live in the area when this murder happened?" Yes, I did. Um, Now, if my math is right, I'm placing this around, I was about 18 years old when this happened. Um, so yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Colorado. Well, not born. I was actually born in Oregon, but we moved here when I was 2, and I've lived here ever since. So yeah, it was a big deal, um, right when it happened. To tell you the truth, I was so kind of lost personally, as a person during that time when it happened, that it didn't quite resonate with me the same way some other things that have happened here did. Um, like, to be honest, the crime that happened out here that really fucked me up and rocked my world was Columbine. That was about 4 years later, and that that really kicked my ass, um, because I hadn't been out of high school that long. I went to Bear Creek High School, which was a rival school of Columbine's, and the I had a girlfriend once who went to Columbine, and we experienced a lot of those same things in school that were going on with those kids, with the bullying and the cliques, the jocks and the stoners. So um, so I could really relate to that in a way that I probably couldn't relate to Jonbenet. But yeah, I mean, both of them were huge worldwide stories, and it felt really strange to me that they were happening locally in Colorado. Watching some that happened, 7 miles or 4 miles from you on CNN. Very surreal. Um, Carrie asks, "Have I ever met the Ramses?" No, no, I've never met the Ramses. Um, but one thing that is kind of crazy is Lakewood, where I live, is kind of like a middle class, like, suburb, and you can drive in any direction from here, and you will go through super rich neighborhoods and super poor neighborhoods, and it's crazy that it can just, I could, go drive by their old house, and I don't know, I would be there, and 10 minutes, maybe 15 from here. Uh, but it is I've never met them, but it's funny how easy it is to run into them. If I had, I mean, it's possible I've walked past him in a grocery store or something, and I wouldn't have even known because I'm, not familiar enough with him to, you know, to recognize him, you know, right off the top like that. Yeah. So Joan asks, is it true what is said about Boulder, the atmosphere of the town? Um, yeah. So Boulder's a college town. It has a reputation as being a party town. Uh, CU is in Boulder, which is um, had a big reputation as a party school. And my impressions of Boulder are that it's very kind of hippie-ish. Um, there's a lot of like, it seems like kind of like vegan, health-oriented culture out there, and there's some money out there. The only real time I've ever spent in Boulder for any extended amount of time was I used to have a metal band when I was in my early 20s, and we went out there to record an album. We had a guy who has actually become a really good uh, worldwide like record producer. He's one of the foremost sought out metal producers these days, and he started out there in Boulder, and we went out. We were probably out there for a week, and it is a different feel. It is a different feel from other places in Colorado for sure. Yeah. Well, Carrie, I would say that Colorado is pretty eccentric in general. Um, but yeah, Boulder definitely did have a different feel. As soon as you go in there, it's almost like kind of like its own country, like Texas or something. It's very, very different. The people out there are different. It has its own feel for sure. And it's absolutely beautiful, by the way. The shots that you see of it in the film, um, that's what it looks like. It is gorgeous. So Lisa asks, are beauty pageant the norm for girls? Um, so I don't have any personal experience with beauty pageants, but from what I can gather, that kind of stuff is sort of a wealthy status kind of thing. You see it more often with families that are coming from money, and I don't, to tell you the truth, I have no idea if they're going on around here or not. I've never, been invited to one or seen one advertised, but I think that kind of stuff happens where the wealthy people are. Do you still hear the case talked about out there? Um, to be honest, not that much. Um, I mean, it was it seems like every once in a while, okay, so when the CBS special came out and it was in the news, um, mostly for getting sued by Burke, um, it I would kind of hear whispers about it, and then you know friends of mine and coworkers found out about my involvement in the film, and so they would bring it up to me and ask me what I thought about it and stuff. But really, it's I mean I haven't heard about it that much since then. I mean, there's so much craziness in the world, even in Colorado. Because, so you think about it, here in Colorado, we're now like two um, tragedies of, at least national magnitude as far as how they were covered in the media. We're two tragedies removed from Jonbenet because we had Columbine, and then after that, the Aurora Theater shooting, which was a huge deal, and people really, really got after that one in the media. Um, with I remember the day that happened. It was a really kind of eerie thing because it was opening day of The Dark Knight Rises, I believe was the movie. It was the Batman movie with Bane, and it happened in a theater where they were showing that on its debut night. And we had been thinking about going to see it that day. We were at a barbecue and we were talking about like, hey, maybe we should get out of here and go see the new Batman. And then that story dropped like while we were at the barbecue. And so, I mean, we've been blasted with so many crazy tragedies over here in Colorado that it's almost like we're kind of far removed from that one. But, I do think that some of the films and the fact that, we're in the 20th anniversary of it now, have kind of brought it back to the forefront a little bit. And, you know, I do hear about it occasionally. So I did want to say I know that uh, a lot of you in the group are kind of like experts on the case, and I didn't want to come in with any pretense or ruin the Q&A before it got started by saying I'm not any sort of an expert on the case, but I mean obviously not. But I do still find it to be fascinating, and it's crazy. Okay. After doing this, okay, here's so we got about three good ones here in a row. All right, let's go. Um, Lisa asks, after doing this film, do you feel attached to this case at all? Like, do you find yourself researching it more? I do. I definitely do. I feel much more attached to it than before, for sure. I mean, being a part of this film became like a really big deal, you know, for me and my family. You know, we when the day it came out on Netflix, like we had a family gathering to, you know, watch it for the first time. My wife and I got to go to a special advanced screening of it at a theater around here um, before. Did you lose me? Before it came out, but so I mean, it's not even just me, but my whole family's kind of like made sacrifices around, you know, my involvement in the film, like how excited I would get about it, and how they'd have to deal with me posting shit about it on Facebook like every other day. So, yeah, with all the excitement that came with being a part of the film, I couldn't help but come away with, you know, being much more interested in it than I probably had been before. Um, so yes, yeah, I absolutely do, and I'm sure I'll probably be researching it more, you know, from now until the time I die, you know, based, you know, in large part on my involvement in the film. Now, Joan asks, you mentioned being worried about things you had said ending up in the movie. Were you or others on the film ever under the impression you were being observed or followed? Any odd incidents on set? Oh, no, nothing like that. You know, it's like I said. I mean, Kitty was pretty straight up about it. She explained beforehand that, you know, in the course of these casting calls, we may use footage from this in the film, and you know, are you cool with that? And of course, everyone was. And then, you know, in the course, I think, of trying to, you know, loosen up and, you know, get into character or whatever, and you know, trying to do a good job and land some sort of a part in the film. Um, a lot of us just tried to open up and say what was on our minds, and you know, I think that led people to say certain things that in some cases I'm sure they regret, and and but that's kind of the point of the film, in my opinion, is trying to get honest answers out of people, and I think people say and do some interesting things in stressful situations like what you had there. Um, what is your theory on why Kitty wanted to make the film? Says Lisa. Um, well, I've seen an interview or two with Kitty where she explained that um, she grew up fascinated by the case. She was a little girl when it happened, and it left a really big impression on her. And she was been kind of obsessed with the case ever since. Um, it made a lot of sense to me why she would want to do that, because you know I've, you know, had similar preoccupations with things in my life. But you know, Kitty's from Australia, and so she had only these kind of filtered ideas about what American life was like, and she had this kind of idyllic view of what it was like to live in America. And so when she saw this um, case unfold in the media, she she was really blown away, and her, you know, her whole idea of American culture was kind of shattered. So I think it just left a massive impression on her, and it was something that she had in herself that she had to resolve, you know, and making this film was her kind of catharsis to work out those emotions that she had about the case. And Carrie asks, "Are you comfortable in giving us your theory?" Okay, well, I'll give you my theory. And again, I'm not an expert in the case by any means. But my theory was that Burke did it. So when so that's why I got nervous when in between the time I filmed that and the time it was released, I saw the thing where CBS was getting sued, and I shit my pants and said, "Oh my God!" Well, he's suing CBS for I don't know a few $1 billion, and I work at a fucking grocery store making $20 an hour, so you do the math. Um, it's not going to go well for me. But over the course of the filming and seeing and hearing some of the other things that people came up with, I began to kind of move away from that theory a little bit. And now I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Here's what I do know. I know that not many people feel like John was involved directly. There's some theories out there that maybe because he was wealthy, um, somebody was trying to extort him or something, and that's a theory. Um, maybe Burke may be the most popular theory. A close second, or also maybe being the first most popular theory, is that Patsy did it. Uh, I feel like it's about 85, 90% that Burke or Patsy did it in some way or another. But other than that, it's so far out there. I almost feel uncomfortable, you know, saying anything because one of the points they made in the film is um, that it's horrible the things that people involved in a tragedy like this go through when they're wrongfully accused of things, and that's the last thing on earth I would ever want to do. I try to be mindful of that and pay attention to that. So I think I gotta wrap it up in a few minutes. But if anyone else got anything, I'd like to get to it. Yeah, well, Carrie, it is scary for, um, people, for average people to have someone who has the means behind them to hire not a lawyer, but a team of lawyers um, coming after them. You know, I mean, that's a horrifying prospect for average person who, you know, doesn't have the means to defend themselves about. Yep. So, you know, just want to say thank you to everyone for coming in and having fun with me. It was great to see you all, and I'll definitely stay part of the group. And and it's good times. Maybe we'll do something else down the road. It was good to meet you all. So I will talk to you soon.